Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Drag Illustrated, the racing business with me, Jason Dukes. Thank you for being here for another week. Again, the goal here is always to inspire, of course, to entertain, but to educate and to help people build some big racing businesses out here in this world. Of course, we have to start by thanking the people who help us get here. One, of course, is Drag Illustrated. So, check out the magazine, the website, the email blast, all the different podcasts, and of course, Racers Club. You can go to racers.club to get all your really cool Racers Club apparel. You can find me at Captain's, things are on the other side, Captain's Chair Coaching, captains-chair.com. And then just my normal PSA announcements. Physical, actually do anything you want to do with this information. I'm not selling anything, but just do what you want to do with this information. I'll say the stuff, you do what you want to do. Physical, mammogram, colonoscopy, endoscopy, blood pressure tests, diabetes test, PSA, sleep test, and we added one from last week. Check those molds. Check the moles too. Why not? All right. So got to do those things because we got to stay healthy as an industry, right? So this week, really awesome show, really awesome person. Super excited to have her here and to tell the whole story of Alexis DeJoria. So buckle up here and get ready for a good show as we invite our guest for this week, Miss Alexis DeJoria. How are you doing, ma'am?
I'm good. Definitely buckle up. It's going to be a good show.
What a life, what an experience, right? So
yeah, no doubt.
Tell us really. I guess we'll just start out by telling us all the things happening right now, both with you personally, with the race team, with Bandero, like all the different things that going on.
East Coast. Pretty interesting. My family, we have a house. It's kind of like more of like an estate out here, but it was owned by the Firestone Tire family, Firestone and Ford families, and it's called the Firestone Estate at Ocean Lawn, and it's in Newport, Rhode Island. It was finished in 1889, so very old house, great history, really incredible. I think it's very fitting that that we acquired this place, and so I'll be going from here to the Epping racetrack, Epping, New Hampshire, and it's one of my favorite races because it's pretty much only like one of the only hometown races I have now on the East Coast. Englishtown's been gone for a while, so Epping, New Hampshire is really the only one where my family can go to on the East Coast.
Gotcha. So tell us about everything going on with the race team. Like, bring us up to date on the race team. Bring us up to date on Bandero Tequila.
Yeah, the race team. We've had some little changes in the last couple races, some shift changes and whatnot. Guys taking on more of a load and getting more acquainted with different parts of the car, which I think is really good. So at this point, I feel like the guys can pretty much do most of the things on the car, no matter what position that they're in. And they wanted to take on a little bit more responsibilities and whatnot, and kind of get catapulted forward into a different realm. But they're doing really well. Last race in where were we? Chicago. We did pretty good. We qualified all right. Lost second round on whole shot, if you even want to call that. That was like a day late. But I'm really proud of my guys for all the changes that have been made. They've really excelled, and they're open to it. They want to be pushed forward and learn as much as they possibly can about the cars. So,
yeah,
that's been good.
Tell us about the makeup of the team. I know that first the origin of the name of the team, and then the ownership and how the team has evolved.
Yeah, DC Motorsports. It's not what a lot of people would think. It's actually stands for DeJoria Charles, and Charles is Dell's middle name. He's like, I already did the Worsham thing. He's like, you've already done ADR. He goes, let's do something cool. He goes, DC sounds pretty awesome. I said, yeah, it sounds like a comic book. But yeah, I think that worked out really well. It's kind of cool, something different. People that wouldn't really assume that. So I had no idea Dell had a middle name is Charles. I think it's kind of brilliant, actually. Yeah, so it's Dell Worsham at the helm. He doesn't have an assistant crew chief right now. He is just going full force all by himself. And he likes it that way. We've had opportunities to hire, to bring on somebody to assist him, and he's just fine. So, at some point we might hire, 2 more people, like, solid crew members that have their CDLs. Obviously, that's a big one. So if anybody's listening to this podcast, we're putting it out there. Right now we have some like temporary guys that are helping out with the body and tires and things like that. But we definitely need like 2 more solid crew members with their CDLs.
How do they get in contact with the team?
Go online and reach out, or come to us at the road, at the races. Just put it out there. Yeah, we'll be taking resumes and whatnot. So yeah, I think it's pretty incredible everything that Dell has accomplished. He's done it all. He's driven them. He's worked on them. He can work on any part of that race car. He can tune the car, absolutely everything you can imagine. And for him to be able to just like, go up there in the crew chief lounge and set, the tone for the weekend, and then come down and fix stuff or work on things with the guys. I mean, they love that. It's pretty badass to have a crew chief that doesn't mind getting dirty. In fact, I think he likes it.
Yeah. How about Bandero Tequila? Tell us about that.
Bandero is doing really well. So it's a small batch premium tequila. It takes, a little while to get going. That's why we haven't had major distribution throughout the United States, but it's coming. It's getting bigger. Every race I go to, I can't even tell you how many people are asking me, like, where can we get it? Where can we get it? So if you go online and you go to bandero.com and you put in your zip code, it'll show you all the places near you that you could get it, if you can, within your county or state or whatnot. But it's definitely growing. So look out for it. It's really good. If you guys like Patron, Silver Patron, you're going to love Bandero, because it's, I would say, better than Patron Silver. A lot of people have tasted it and think that it is as well. I've done blind tests with plenty of people, and they love it. So yeah, look out for it. It's got a really cool bottle. It's supposed to look like a canteen, so it has like this leather kind of case around it. It's pretty awesome. I think that's the most expensive part of the entire bottle is that leather case around it. But it's been really fun. It's a different journey with my family. I own like maybe 2%, if that. My sister and I own 2%, just enough to get free bottles of tequila.
Yeah. Oh, I think last time we talked, I was joking. I also want 2%. Actually, I just want tequila.
Yeah. I like 2%. I'll send you 2%.
Awesome. Well, so let's just talk about the journey. Like, where did this start, right? Like, tell us a little bit about I mean, I know for you a lot of the journey starts with your dad. So tell us like the kindergarten version, like use all names, because not everyone really, may not know the whole story. So
yeah. So I guess since the age of 5, I wanted to be a fighter pilot. And I've always had an affinity with motorsports of all types, 2 wheels, 4 wheels, off-road, fighter jets, everything you could possibly imagine. And just really gravitated towards that kind of life. And my father, when he was raising me with my mom and everything, he would go and do these cannonball races all over the place. And he loved it so much, and he would win most of the time and had great stories about it. But not until I got into like high school or junior high did I really get a full appreciation for street racing and all that whatnot. Kind of gravitated towards, you know, guys building their hot rods in high school, and got a 67 Chevelle SS, which I still have. And we've been, you know, working on it ever since. Now it looks kind of like a sleeper, but it's got a big block 454 in it, so it's pretty badass. It's been quite a journey. I raced a little bit in high school, but just really, I loved racing, like 100% loved racing, and I wanted to race. The Air Force was looking a little dim at that point in my life. I wasn't really planning on going to college, so it didn't work out that well. But I did still get to do an incentive ride, which we'll talk about later. Because where is it? There it is. See it? See my arm.
Oh, cool.
Gosh.
Which plane is that?
My numbers. Where is it? There it is, right there. It's an F-15
Oh,
Strike
nice.
Eagle. So I did get to do an incentive ride still, but we'll talk about that later. When I was 16, I went to my very first drag race in Pomona. I went to the Winter Nationals with a friend of mine I grew up in high school with. He had a 57 Chevy Bel Air. I had the 67 Chevelle. We used to go to the swap meet and grab parts and whatnot, and the Super Chevy swap meet. And so one time we went to the drag race, and I just fell in love with the funny cars. That was it for me. I knew right then and there, when I saw Del Worsham and John Forrest go down the racetrack, I knew that's what I was going to do at some point in my life. After high school, of course, after my plans to work for the family business a little bit after high school and take college courses, which at the end of that, I still was like so set on racing, on driving. So I, respectfully thanked my father for the opportunity to be working in the business with my siblings, which was amazing. And I'll always have that, that education aspect of it. It was incredible. But really, I wanted to dive into what I felt was my passion, and that's how we were raised. If you can make your passion your profession, then you'll be successful, and you'll never feel like you're actually working. Which some days it does feel like you're working, and some days it doesn't. But when everything goes right, it's a great day at work.
Yeah. So you were one of the people, the first time you saw a funny car, you said, I want to do that. Where I'm like the other 99% of the people, where the first time I saw a funny car, I was like, wait, the engine is where?
You're like, no. Yeah, my dad said the same thing. He's like, wait, you sit where? He's like, don't you want to drive a dragster? They're so like sexy and cool, and look at all that real estate or like sponsor names. And no. I already signed on for the class, Dad. I already signed on for Frank Hawley's drag racing school. I'm doing it.
Yeah.
No, it was a great journey. Very great journey.
So you brought up your dad, and just like from past conversations, I know some of the stories, some of the misconceptions that people may have, like, and I get that too. Like, there's a 8-year difference between me and my brother, and we live totally different lives just because my parents were in a different place when he came up versus me. So, like, tell us, like, growing up, Alexis, and maybe some of the misconceptions that people have about that.
So it's really interesting, but all of my siblings, so I have all half sisters, brothers. We've all experienced different stages of my father's success and wealth. Our oldest brother, Johnny, obviously was there when my dad was living out of his car, and his mom had left them. Long story, really crazy. But so my dad raised my older brother by himself and my grandmother. She was struggling really bad. By the time he met my mother, he was working for Redken, which is pretty interesting. and he was good. He was doing good. Nothing like he is obviously now, not even close. But he just doing well. You know, they had a little house in Hollywood, and when I came into the picture, I was born in Hollywood, California. and they yeah um, and they had me, and then a few years later they got divorced, and I spent a lot of time on the East Coast where I'm at now. Not this particular house, but just on the East Coast in Rhode Island with my grandparents and my mom and my family out here. Kind of went back and forth. But about that time is when my father started the company Paul Mitchell. So him and his partner Paul Mitchell was the hairstylist. Like, he was the face, he was the artist. My dad was the businessman, so it was like the perfect union. And they started it with like $700. They got the most basic packaging you could possibly imagine. It was just plain white with like thin black lines. That's the signature Paul Mitchell, you know, product line. And then they sold them door to door out of the back of my dad's car, door to door to salons. And they still are only sold in salons. If you see them anywhere, sold anywhere outside of a salon, meaning if I'm not talking like Ulta, who has like, they have salon chairs. If they have an area where they do hair, then it's okay. But if you see it just sold in like CVS or places like that, then it's, to my knowledge, it's counterfeit. It's not supposed to be sold.
it's not
supposed to be there. Yeah, it's only supposed to be sold in salons. So yeah, they started that, and it just really grew because of the dedication and perseverance that my father had in Paul Mitchell. And they were the perfect union. Like, Paul was like this incredible hair artist from Scotland. He was like such a badass. And him and my dad were like the greatest of friends, and it just blew up. And Paul Mitchell. Yeah. And the company itself is called John Paul Mitchell Systems. So my father's name is John Paul DeJoria, and Paul's name is Paul Mitchell. So they put John Paul Mitchell Systems. And yeah, so that he was bouncing all over the world, you know, as it started getting progressing. And I went with him to a few of his business meetings, like overseas and whatnot, when I was little, and all that. So I've seen quite the transformation. And then, of course, like my younger sister, Michaeline, who's actually, she's in line to take over the company right now. She's the VP, and she went to college for like 5 years and got a business degree. And like, her main focus in life was to run Paul Mitchell, and she's doing it. We're all backing her. She's doing an awesome job. And yeah, so, and then my younger brother, John Anthony, so he's 24. So we're kind of spread out a bit, but all of us are very supportive of our family's business and whatnot. And they come to the races sometimes too when they're around. I don't know if they particularly like the loud noises and the fumes. My sister has a lot of kids. They like it, but it's just it's a lot. So yeah. And I think, you know, me kind of being both sides of my father's success and kind of, you know, bouncing all around and experiencing, you know, different levels. I think it's made me a very well-rounded person. And going into racing, I didn't want anyone to look at me for my last name. I wanted to be known for my actions and not my name, and not my you know, my sex, not being a female in a male dominated sport, which of course I am. But I had 2 strikes against me. I was a female and I had a last name. So yeah, I worked extra hard to not you know, be overshadowed by that. And I think I did a really good job, because within the first 8 months of racing in NHRA and Super Comp, I went to 2 finals and won a Sportsman National. And I had never raced ever before in my life. Not like, legally.
Yeah. Well, what I mean, because this is and I'll get to that part too. But since it's more of a business related show, what are some of the business lessons that you learned, like from your dad and the way that he structured the partnership, with Paul Mitchell and just some of the things that you saw of how he built the company? What are some of the lessons you learned?
Using fewer moving parts, having less people to do more jobs, and taking people, really watching out for each other, having each other's backs, and just having like a common understanding and respect, which, it's hard, especially at the racetrack. The guys are on the road so much, like more so we see each other sometimes more than we see our own families. And it's a family on the road. And I'm always checking in with them. And, it's a lot of personalities. I think that's one of the hardest things about being on a full-time race team, is just like dealing with different personalities and and all that. And you're gonna have good days and you're gonna have bad days, and you just gotta roll with it. And there's no crying in drag racing. If you have a problem, you handle it and be done with it and move on.
Yeah, well, I heard you talk about that when you talked about your late light, and you owned it. You're like, yep, and I was way late, and talk about that a little bit too, like just from a business side and also drag racing side, just the accountability
for that. I really don't. I have no explanation for it whatsoever. Went out there, thought everything was good. Something happened, late light. And, sitting there, because it seems like it's an eternity, driving back in the tow vehicle to the pit, and you're just like, oh God. No. And the world has done it. There's been plenty of pro racers prior to me who's had, mess ups or whatnot. And I own it. I come back into the pit, and first thing I do, everybody's like attacking the car, taking it apart. And I come back and I just say to the guys, like, I'm better than that. We're better than that. I apologize. It's completely my fault. And I don't have an explanation for it. I don't know what the hell happened. I don't know. Don't even have a name for it. I just hope it never happens again. Please.
Well, and it's drag racing, and it probably, unfortunately, will happen again.
Humans, yeah. Well, it's part of it. We go out there and we want to try to be as much of a machine as possible and do the same thing over and over again. As Frank Hawley likes to say, just nuts and bolts, Alexis. It's just nuts and bolts. No feeling. It's just, that's a tough one, man, because there's a lot of feeling in there. A lot of excitement, a lot of ups and lots of downs. It's the most humbling sport in the world. My God, you could be on cloud 9 one weekend and then the next weekend not even qualify. So I think I've got a really good race team. Working with Del Worsham has just been such a gift, and having him, calling him my friend, my co-owner, co-team owner, and crew chief. Incredible. I've lined up against him as a teammate before. I seem to do my best when I race Del, which is really interesting. He's like, why do you always cut the best lights when you're up against me? I'm like, it's the student beating the teacher. Come on. It's your fault, Del. You did this. You showed me what's up. I beat him in Vegas one year when he was my crew chief, or when he was my teammate. It was right after he was my crew chief at Kalitta's in the DHL car. And I was excited because I was like, no matter what, there's going to be a Kalitta car, in the winner's circle. And luckily it was us. It was our team. And he was bummed at the top end. I was like, Del, I go, it's your fault, man. You're the one who taught me how to drive.
Yeah. Well, that's a mark of a good teacher, though, when your student can beat you.
When the student beats the teacher, isn't that like the ultimate gratification?
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
the teacher and the student.
So
Yeah.
take us on the racing journey, right? Like I guess in that line of the conversation, we stopped at you seeing a funny car and deciding like, oh, that's what I want to do. Where did it
Yeah.
go from there?
So I'm sitting um, in the bleachers with my friend Kevin, and we're watching the cars, and then the Nitro cars are up, right? It's got to be Friday because the dragsters hadn't gone down yet. They were the first ones of the Nitro cars, and everybody's like standing up, right, in their ears. So I'm like, see, I'd watched drag racing on TV, but I had never seen it live in person at a racetrack, so I had no idea.
Yeah.
And everyone's like this. And I'm looking at my friend like, why are you covering your ears? You're such a dork. Like,
Right. I can handle this.
right?
I like it nowadays. People are like, "Oh, I can handle it. Let me record it," and you're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
that's not going to go. That's not going to work."
So yeah, everybody's got their fingers in their ears, and I'm watching my friends like he's looking at me like, just watch, okay? Cars go down the track. I'm like, oh my god, that's the best thing in the world. That's the best sound I've ever heard in my life. And I was hooked from that point on. I was like, that's the car I want to drive. That's the closest thing I can get to a fighter jet on land. That's it. If I can't do this, then I'm going to do that.
Sorry, I just have to write that down. Fighter jet on land, because yeah, that's exactly what it is.
It is, yeah.
So where did you take it from there? So you're at the track and
like
you see this. You're at the track, you see this fighter jet on
So
land.
yeah,
Like,
just fell in love with those funny cars, man. The dragsters were amazing, but there was something about the funny cars, I think, because they're the most challenging, short wheelbase. They're just badass. The people that drove them were cool. Like, it was just one of those things where it's like the whole package. I'm like, that's it. I will drive one of those one day. That's my goal. And obviously, not coming from a racing background whatsoever, I needed to like learn the ropes and kind of just work my way up to that point. So I did some research and found Frank Hawley's drag racing school to kind of get my feet wet. Went out there, took the super gas class. Found it was a 1963 Corvette Roadster in the super gas class that Frank was actually selling for a friend of him and Jack Beckman at the class in Pomona. So they told me about this car, and I had some money in my savings, and I bought it, and I started racing that around a little bit on the West Coast circuit, like Division 7, because I lived in Venice, California at the time. And I was working for my dad's business, Paul Mitchell, and racing on the weekends. So fun. I loved it. I just absolutely loved it. The car I was racing wasn't that great, but it was a good way for me to just learn the ropes and get situated. Ended up parking next to this amazing family. I was so lucky to team up with them, the Robbins family. Chris, Shannon, all of them. They're so great. They raced Super Comp and quickly talked me into getting like a Super Comp dragster. And their friend Steve Williams, who races for who worked for Holly Carbs, or not Holly Carbs, sorry, scratch that. He Steve Williams would build Super Comp dragsters every 2 years, like new ones, and then sell his old one. So I acquired one of his Super Comp dragsters. They helped me tune it, and within 8 months of me coming into NHRA, I went to 2 nationals, or 2 finals, made it to 2 finals, and won a Sportsman national, which was really incredible. And I think at that moment, I knew I was supposed to be here. This is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, from a business side and more like just the story of drag racing, can you talk a little bit more about like, the chance of you parking next to the family and then
Right.
how that evolved? Like what's some advice that you have for people going to the track?
Just kind of fan out, like meet people, talk to people. The pits are some of the best places. I mean, my God, sportsman racing, there's so many people that do it, so many cars, hundreds of cars that'll show up to a race. You go a lot around. It's very, very competitive. Um, yeah, I had a great time racing in the sportsman classes. And I felt like once I had won in each class, I didn't win in the super gas class, but I only raced probably 3 or 4 times total before that motor was on its last leg. Thanks a lot, Jack, back then. This was a great car. It's my friend's car. He's selling it here. It did its job, but I was ready to move on. But yeah, so the Super Comp Dragster, I did that for a little bit longer. But then obviously with Nitro Funny Car being my goal, I wanted to kind of get that moving. So every time I would win in the class, I would make plans to move on to the next class, faster cars. So the jump from Super Comp to Top Alcohol Funny Car was like a big jump because short wheelbase, leaving off a clutch, shifting twice, and trying to steer totally different, way faster. Took me a little bit longer to get going in that class, but once I did, just wow! I mean, what a great way to prepare me for the Nitro class, really.
And what was the Alexis way of doing it, right? Like some people they jump class by going out and building a car of their own and putting a team together themselves, or some people just find people who are doing it. Like what was your way, or what did the opportunity show for you?
Well, interesting. So our friends were racing alcohol dragster, the O'Bannons, blown alcohol dragster at the time, and Jack O'Bannon, his son Sean, was wanting to race alcohol funny car. Right? Found out that I wanted to race alcohol funny car. I was like, oh, I'll build a 2-car team. Probably wasn't the best idea at the time. It was a little, it was a lot. It was a lot. But yeah, we had a two-car team, 2 alcohol funny car team. Struggled a lot actually. The car was kind of messed up. It wasn't. It was a Dodge, but it wasn't. It was like one of the first alcohol Dodge bodies that really, I don't know. It needed some work as far as like just how the windshield was set up and everything. It just kind of needed a little bit of fine tuning. So it took some more time to get that in line. But I worked with some really great crew chiefs, really, really good crew chiefs. Um, oh gosh, Bob DeVore, Anderson, oh my gosh, hold on. Oh wait, I hope you can cut this part out.
No, well, you could also just everybody gets it. Everybody
No,
knows.
God, yeah. Oh my God, Shelly's brother. Why am I blanking on this?
Randy.
Randy, thank you. I haven't said the name for so long, I forgot. Randy Anderson. My God, what an incredible human being. Like, what a great man. So good to work with him. My gosh. Let's see. Yeah, worked with a few really great guys. And then at a certain point, I kind of wanted to break off and do my own thing. Really appreciated all the work that the O'Bannons did, and I think they ended up going back to alcohol dragster for a while. But Bob Newberry, he was a Division I racer. Bob Newberry. He was selling his operation, but wanted to stay on as a mentor and crew chief. So it seemed like the perfect opportunity. So sold my stuff and then got Bob Newberry's team and moved out to Florida. I lived out in right outside of Gainesville, Florida for two and a half years while I raced out there with Bob. And once I made that move, and I think we were racing, it was a Camaro. Yeah, it was. Everything really fell into place. Working with Bob Newberry, I think he just kind of settled everything down, where I think I was a little all over the place. And he's like, you know what? He said to me one day, he goes, Alexis, there's nothing wrong with you. He goes, you're a great driver. He goes, you just needed to be in the right car. And I was like, all right. And started doing really, really well. Won a divisional race. Had gone to a couple finals. Between myself and Frank Manzo at one point in Gainesville, we kept like going back and forth, taking the world record from each other, which was pretty cool. ET and speed. And God, what a great weekend that was. Obviously, he ended up taking it. when it was all said and done, Manzo had it at the end of the weekend. But yeah, I mean, everything really fell into place at that moment. Had finally, gotten to the point where I just felt like, okay, I got this now. Like, I know, how to do this. This is good. I feel comfortable in it. And I feel like I could honestly win races. And I had gone to like a lot of finals and semifinals and whatnot. And, I then, what is it? So Englishtown, New Jersey, when we were racing out there had been a few issues, fatalities in the past. The year prior, Scott Kalitta, rest in peace, lost his life. And the next year we went there, and my parachutes ripped off the back of my car. And it opened up the rear end because of the way that they were welded on the rear end, which they implemented like a completely new tether system and everything because of my accident, which is pretty interesting. But at that time, like they only welded them on the outside of the tabs, and it was attached to the rear end. And each run I was making was like faster and faster. It was like opening it up, like cracking it. Finally, the last run I made there, it ripped open the back end, ripped the parachutes off the car, ripped open the back end, and sprayed oil all over the car, all over the brakes. So I had no way to stop the car. Like right when I crossed the finish line, it scrubbed like maybe about 100 miles an hour off from right when the parachutes blossomed. But then you'll see in the video, like they rip right off. Right. But just that split second of them opening up, it slowed me down. And then like the little bit of brakes that I had. But after that, I had no way to stop the car. And with alcohol cars, the alcohol funny cars, they don't have the downforce that a Nitro car has. So you're still like cutting through the air like a knife. And I was just flying, man. And I was like, well, I'm not stopping. All right, here we go. And just remember, Bob Newberry's voice in the back of my head. Okay, Alexis, if you ever get in this situation, you just line yourself up to the middle of the sand trap. And, as soon as you know that you don't have any more control over the steering of the car, you just lock your arms up like this, close your eyes and hope for the best. And that's exactly what I did. Went through both catch nets. Didn't really touch the sand at all until the end. Through both catch nets and 4 rows of those sand-filled barrels before the car finally stopped. It went up and then came down. But from the motor plate forward, it just curled the chassis right over the injector. And I got really, really lucky. I came out unscathed. Nothing was wrong. A couple hours later, I felt like I was 90 years old, though. I mean, my whole body was in pain from hitting at 40 G's. I think it was pretty hard impact. But yeah, so after that, they implemented the tether system on all the parachutes, and they're not attached to the rear end like it was in that accident.
Yeah.
And even crazier, like the following year, we came back to that racetrack, like my first race back at Englishtown after my accident. I'm 2 pairs back, and Neil Parker goes off the end of the track, Alcohol Funny Car driver, and he doesn't make it. And I'm like, what this track is like, I don't know what's going on here, because it's not the shortest. It's the second shortest shutdown from the finish line to the sand trap. Pomona is actually the shortest shutdown, and it's downhill. But for some reason, Englishtown just had this, this vibe, man. And it's I always wanted to win there at that track. I ended up racing for Kalitta Motorsports, which is kind of interesting because when I had my accident in Englishtown, that's when I really got close to the Kalittas and was talking with them, because everybody knew my goal from the beginning was to race a Nitro Funny Car. So that, it's just kind of went hand in hand, and really got to know them really well, and became like a family. And I always wanted to race Nitro Funny Cars. So that was like kind of the perfect timing for me to, kind of get involved with them. And I started testing in Dell's family car. Once I won, I had to win a Nitro Funny or an Alcohol Funny Car race first, and I did that in Seattle. And so at that point, I was like, oh, finally, I had won a divisional, but I hadn't won a national event yet. And I told everybody, I was like, I'm not leaving this class until I win a national event, an Alcohol Funny Car. Then I'll go to Nitro. And it finally came in Seattle, and against Brian Howe. And God, what a great race that was. I think I was so relieved. I couldn't even take my helmet off for like a good 10 seconds. They're like, can we get the helmet off? I'm like, just let me soak this in. Just let me soak this in. It's been a long time coming. Yeah, so at that point I had started making runs in Dell's car, and the learning curve from Alcohol Funny Car to Nitro Funny Car was not that bad, actually, compared to Super Comp to Alcohol Funny Car. No, Alcohol Funny Car to Nitro Funny Car was like the perfect deal. And if anyone is looking to get into Nitro Funny Cars, never driven anything before in their life, or kind of want a good stepping stone, Alcohol Funny Car is the best, hands down. Hands down.
Yeah. Tell us about the first. I mean, I'm sort of reliving all the Englishtown stuff. Englishtown was my home track. I'm originally from New Jersey, so I remember.
Oh wow!
Yeah, all those. But tell us about the first crash with you, and like just some of your circles, like your family circle, you, and then your drag racing people. Like, what were each of those circles thinking, like post that accident?
God, well, my aunt and uncle were in the stands that day in Englishtown when that happened. My mom was all the way at home in Marina Del Rey, California, and the race wasn't on yet. Back then, we didn't have like live coverage. Back in the day. No. So my aunt Sandy, she's a little dramatic. She calls my mom right when it happened. She calls my mom from the stands, and my mom wasn't home, so she leaves a message on my mom's voicemail on her answering machine going, Alexis just went off the end of the track. I don't know what's going on. And then hangs up. My mom was like, oh my God, Alexis, I came home and I heard that message. And she's like, I just sat there and stared at the wall, like waiting for somebody to say something. I was like, what the Like, that's so messed up. Who does that? Well, Sandy, that's
aunts do that.
She likes to do that. She was like, I didn't know if you were alive or dead or what. She's like, your Aunt Sandy just blew me out of the water. She's like, I was just sitting there in my chair, just staring at the wall, waiting for somebody to talk to me. And luckily, I came out unscathed. But Yeah. So now I keep a phone in my tow vehicle, and the first thing I do is like I'll call if anything happens, I get in an accident or whatnot. I'll call my family and be like, "I'm okay. Here's what happened." First and foremost, that's the first thing you want to say to anybody is they're okay.
Yeah. And how about for you, what went through your mind, and then also what went through the mind of like your racing people?
Pretty interesting deal. So and I've said this in interviews before, but it's so profound. You know, everything slows down when you've gone down the racetrack at like over 200 miles an hour. When you've driven these cars time and time again, your brain slows everything down. So what we were going like 5.5 seconds, felt like 5.5 minutes. Feels like an eternity. So careening towards and I remember just kind of myself up, there's no brake. I got no way to stop the car. And I remember seeing one of the track officials on the side of the lanes, and he's going like this, right? Like sending me down to the end. And I remember thinking to myself for a split second, I started laughing because I was like, duh. Like, of course I'm going to go straight. You think I'm just going to freaking hang a left right now, going about 140 miles an hour? No. But just weird little things like that you like think of. You're just like, in the face of death, I'm sitting there giggling to myself going, duh, of course I'm going to go to the end. And then, cross the finish line or cross the sand trap. And I had my arms locked in like this and closing my eyes, and the sound, I'll never forget the sound, how horrendous it was, like just flying over there. And then when it hit and just the supercharger like spinning out, and then the car coming down to its final stop on its side and then pulling me out of the top. And I'm looking at my car. I'm going, damn it, because I won the round. We had gone the fastest we had ever gone. And, not unlike Nitro cars, we don't have a backup car. So that's it. That's done. I'm done for the day. And yes, I came out unscathed and nothing like that. But me being a racer, I'm like, I don't have a car to take to the next round. I was like, damn it. And John Forrest is down there going, you need to go to the hospital. You have internal bleeding. And I'm just like, God damn, what did we run again? What did we run? Oh, that's our best run yet. Dang it. I don't have a car to race. And we won the round. I was just like spinning out. And they're like, just go to the hospital. I was like, fine. Yeah.
What is your advice there? Because I've worked at racetracks and been around all the things where it's like it is a fight sometimes to get people to go to the hospital, and it's like
right.
They're so in the adrenaline of it that it's like, go to the hospital.
Yeah, if you don't see like immediate, issues or cuts or pains, then you feel like you're fine. But your endorphins are rushing, your adrenaline's rushing. You may not know you have a really bad injury. The other times I've had issues and had bad injuries, I knew right away. And I was like, I need to go to the hospital. And then other times I've just been like, just give me the oxygen tank for a little bit and I'll breathe some oxygen and then I'm going to go. Just depends. I think after, experiencing so many different things, wall bangers, crashes, explosions, fires, all that kind of stuff, you start to like get an idea of what's what. But yeah, that first one was just like, it was huge. It was a big deal. And I'm very lucky to have come out of it alive and be able to sit here and talk to you today. So very grateful for the safety safari. Very grateful for all of my safety gear that I had on. And sometimes catastrophic events have to happen for new safety, things to be implemented. It's part of the deal, unfortunately and fortunately, goes hand in hand.
Yeah. You talked about when you talked about Nitro Funny Car, you said that on your way up, everyone knew your goal. Can you tell people about the importance of sharing your goal and making sure that everyone knows your goal?
Uh, I mean, it's a yeah. Um, I like my inner circle knew. I mean, for the most part, I think everybody knew. But also, it's not like I'm not running around going, "I'm going to drive a Nitro Funny Car. I'm going to drive a Nitro Funny Car." That's what I'd like to do. But until then, I'm learning this class. I'm diving full head on, all hands and arms, everything is in this class. And I'm going to do my very, very best in this class before I even think about moving to the next class. So earning the respect of myself to be able to say, like, I've got this down, now I can move to the next one.
Yeah. So we in the story, the timeline of the story, you're at testing the Worsham Funny Car. Where does it go from there?
Yeah, so so Dell and I had hung out, and I had met, with the Kalittas, and I talked to other teams prior to that, but the feeling I got from the Kalitta family and working with Nikki Bonifani and Jim Oberhofer, the Oberhofer brothers, and all them, it was such a it was family. It was instant. I was like, this is where I'm supposed to be. This is good. And working for Connie was like a dream come true. I mean, he's a legend. I watched Heart Like a Wheel so many times. And if you ask him about certain things that happened, and he's like, "Oh, it was twice as bad as that."
Right. It was already
did you
bad.
Really have a girlfriend come up to the hospital with you when you were going to visit Shirley? He goes, "I had 2 girls, not just one." He's the best. Hilarious. So yeah, it was an honor to be able to race for that man, and I still go up to him and give him a big old hug when I see him. But so Dell was planning on being my crew chief at that time. He was racing himself, his family's car, and until he was finished, I started racing. Jim Oberhofer was my crew chief for just like a hot second. Because I started at the end of the 2011 season. I started in Dallas, so I raced like a couple races at the end of the 2011 season, basically waiting for Dell to come on in 2012 to be my crew chief full time. And I got licensed in Dell's car. We went out to, was it Vegas or Dallas? I think. Oh, it was Dallas. Went out to Dallas, my very first run. This is pretty funny. My dad was out there, and he's got his camera, and he's all excited. And so Dell goes, I'm out talking to him and whatever. And I go, "So Dell, how far do you want me to take it?" And he's like, "Oh, about half track, about point where, the clutch starts to seat and you really feel that like extra jump." I was like, "Okay." He goes, "If everything feels right, take it that far." Right. It's like, "Okay, cool." I'm sitting in the water box waiting, to get started up, and the track official comes over to Dell, starting line official comes over, and he's like, so how far are you guys going to take it?" And Dell looks at me, and he looks at him, and he goes, 1,000 feet. And I'm like, "Oh, okay." If everything feels right, just take it all the way, right? It's playing in my head. So everything's good. Just start the car up, do the burnout, back up, pull up everything, take off. Car's nice and straight, feels good. Take it to the finish line, hit the pair of shoes, shut the car down. And on the starting line, my dad is like, "Oh, yeah," so excited. He's got his camera, he's like jumping up and down. The guy said Dell's face was just like white. He's like, I thought Dell died, like right there. He just went pale. And he goes, "I thought I just killed that man's daughter right in front of him." I was like, "Oh no." So I get back from the run, and the guys in the car are like, "Hey man, like, were you supposed to take it all the way?" And I told them what happened. They're like, "Oh, really? Okay, because we thought you were only going to take it like half track or something." I'm like, "Oh." I get back and I go into the crew chief lounge. I was like, Dell, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And I explained it to him. And Dell's dad, Chuck, is sitting in the crew chief lounge too. And he's like, well, I can understand why she would think that way, Dell. And Dell's like, dude, he goes, I thought the throttle had stuck. He's like, I thought you were going to die. Like, he's like, I thought all these horrible things in my head popped up. And he goes, I look over and your dad's like jumping like 2 feet in the air. He's so excited. And everyone else is like, and I'm like, man, I'm so sorry. He goes, well, how did it feel? I said, it felt great. It's perfect. It's everything I imagined it would be and more. It was like best day of my life. And he's like, oh, awesome. Well, you did a great job. I was like, all right, cool. Thank you. I go, don't worry. I go, I won't do that again. He goes, no, you're good. You're good.
But then,
I
of course,
basically got licensed my first pass ever in a Nitro funny car.
Wow. Wow.
But I really, I have to say, like, alcohol funny car really prepared me for that. And I can't imagine doing it any other way.
Yeah. Wow. So how many years did you stay with Kalitta? And then eventually you ended up creating your own team. How did that happen?
So from 2011, the end of 2011 to 2017 was my very last year at Kalitta Motorsports. And then I took a 2-year hiatus to be with family, and then started back up. Started DC Motorsports with Del Worsham, and a couple years later, yeah.
Gotcha. Well, what's next for? We're coming to the end here. What's next for Alexis DeJoria? What's next for?
Is it
DC
really?
Racing?
Oh my gosh, that went by fast.
Well, I mean, look, you could also
when you talk about stuff you love to talk about, it's easy, right?
Well, here, actually, how about this? I was about to ask a what's next question, but like, what else? You go. You lead the conversation. What else is there?
I've never made a run in a Top Fuel dragster. I would love to make a run. I don't want to race Top Fuel. I love racing Nitro funny car. I'm the only female Nitro funny car. No female has ever won a championship in Nitro funny car, and that's like big goal. Right now, we are just literally trying to win a race. I've been to a lot of finals in the last years, but to obviously go rounds, win races, make more consistent runs down the racetrack. Me being the only female in the class definitely helps my, my goals in that sense. No, I've never made a run in a dragster. So I know Dell has has a Top Fuel dragster and a Nitro funny car at home that like he'll get people licensed to have people make runs in and whatnot. So one of these off weekends, I might go out there with him and just take a pass, just make a pass or two, just for fun.
Yeah. Any last pieces of advice, either racing advice, business advice?
Yeah, definitely. You got to go slow to go fast. There's going to be plenty of time to make runs. It's a very how do I say this? It's a very humbling sport, and you've got to take the good with the bad. Not every run is going to be perfect, and you just enjoy the ride, because these are the fastest accelerating cars in the world. Like literally, these are the fastest cars. So enjoy the ride. Enjoy the ride.
Love it. Well, I've been a fan for a long time. I've been enjoying your ride and cheering you on. So yeah, of course. So
thank you very much. When's your next race?
I don't know. Well, also this is being recorded, and so when this actually airs, I'll be 3 weeks into neck surgery recovery. So depends on that.
Okay.
Depends on when I can get out. So I don't know. I don't have anything planned yet, but I'll definitely make it out before the end of the year.
Well, please stay in contact with us and let us know.
We'll definitely do.
Yeah.
We'll definitely do. Well, thank you so much.
We'll roll out the red carpet for you. We'll give you that 2% of Bandero.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I totally look forward to it. And guys, thank you again for joining us for another episode of Drag Illustrated's The Racing Business. Again, we'll be here every week to bring you some great information so that you continue to build your great racing businesses. We love you, and we'll see you next week. Take care.